Dana White recently announced his Mount Rushmore of the UFC. The 4 fighters he'd immortalize on a mountainside for the rest of time. And they might not be who you expected. At a surprise but logical number 1, the UFC president went with the man who practically started it all, Royce Gracie. If you're talking about a Mount Rushmore where the heads are carved in stone forever, you have to go to Royce Gracie, he began. No brainer. Have to do that. Royce should absolutely be on the UFC Rushmore. Along with popularizing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the Gracie family co-created the UFC before White was ever involved. And Royce won 3 of the first 4 UFC tournaments. He might not have been the greatest, but he was certainly the first. And speaking of firsts, Amanda Nunes was his almost immediate next answer. Has to be Amanda Nunes, greatest female fighter ever. A cynic might point out that White is trying to sell Nunes, especially now that she's contemplating retirement. But come on. The only simultaneous dual division champ to defend both titles while holding them holds crushing wins over every bantam and featherweight champ in women's UFC history. Every single one. She's the GOAT, and GOATs go on the mountain, which explains his next choice. I would have to go with Jon Jones, which is great to hear given their rocky relationship. The guy's never been beat. And what's more amazing about him going undefeated? Which is incredibly amazing because very few people do it in the sport. White, like everyone else, knows about Jones's out-of-cage troubles. But he's basically right. His only loss was a bad referee call in a fight he was winning. So if you discount that, he's the best there's ever been. The on-again, off-again light heavyweight champ has beaten every challenger he's faced, including Shogun Rua, Lyoto Machida, Vitor Belfort, and Daniel Cormier, among others. Not even Nunes has a resume that good, so who else could be left? Number 4 on the Mount Rushmore, I guess you'd have to go with Chuck Liddell, came White's somewhat surprising last entry. At that point in time, he was as big a star as ever, was the highest paid guy in the company at the time, and all that stuff. No one is ever going to say Liddell is as accomplished or influential as the first 3, but he was the UFC's first superstar. His rivalries with Tito Ortiz and Randy Couture, his time coaching on The Ultimate Fighter, his blue trunks and throat-slit celebration, all iconic. The Iceman is the reason people started watching the UFC, and for White, that's enough to get him on the mountain. So if that's the 4 fighters White would immortalize, who are the fighters he left out? For the casual fan, Conor McGregor might be the most notable exemption. The UFC's first ever dual division champ is the biggest draw card in UFC history by orders of magnitude. Perhaps the fact he never defended a title cost him his spot. Before McGregor, the UFC's golden goose was Ronda Rousey, who, like Conor, out-pay-per-viewed Chuck Liddell repeatedly. But unlike Conor, the first ever women's champ made 6 consecutive defenses. But it's hard to include Rousey when Nunes absolutely destroyed her. The other big pay-per-view juggernaut of the UFC was Brock Lesnar. The heavyweight champ crossed over from the WWE and brought all of the fans with him for new pay-per-view records. But let's be honest, the Beast was never really that good. At least not that good compared to the current champ Stipe Miocic. If you're looking at just heavyweights, the 2-time king has more consecutive defenses and post-fight bonuses than anyone. He's clearly the best of the biggest. It's just a shame he's not a bigger draw card. That's probably why Demetrius Johnson, with his record 11 consecutive defenses, was also left out. While arguably being the most skilled MMA fighter ever to do it bar none, DJ couldn't sell a fight to save himself. That's not true for Anderson Silva, though, who for a long time was White's exemplar of skill and title defenses before DJ. And Silva was absolutely a name that sold fights. Maybe for White, the Spider sullied his legacy and record by fighting too long and racking up multiple losses. But of all the omissions, none stand out more than Georges St. Pierre. He's a two-weight champion, a three-time champion, and he has the second most wins in UFC title fights. If Rush isn't the greatest of all time, he's top two, maybe three. But there's only space for four heads on the mountain, and White clearly had others in mind.
Thanks for watching, and remember, if you want more fight sports in your life, just hit the subscribe button.